if you want your business to thrive on a global scale, you have to become a local community business. In Great Britain, you want to be a UK company. You want to be part of the fabric. You don't want to be some company parachuting in just making money. That's not the kind of a trend anymore.
You are profitable. You are growing insanely fast. Customers love the products. Why IPO?
We wanted to embrace public diligence. We're operating in more than 150 countries. Once you're a public company, transparency is no longer an option. It is a responsibility. It is a requirement.
Ready to go? Donald, I am so excited for this. I've been looking forward to this one for a long time. So thank you so much for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Now, I would love to start. I heard that you worked in a series of restaurants to finance your education in the early days. Can you just talk to me about that? Where was it? How old were you? What did you learn from those early days?
I was 17. I was love struck. I came to the United States to chase a girl, and I had no place to live. Well, that's the gist of it. So I went to a restaurant to beg for a job, and I succeeded. And I washed the dishes, and I bussed tables, and I waited on the tables. But I wasn't very good at it because my English was terrible. I persisted, and I continued to climb the ladder to become an assistant manager. So that was my career. It was a pretty good one. It was in Santa Ana, and I got shot at. But that trained me to be tough and resilient. But that was one of the early experiences that I had.
I mean, I was not expecting that. That was not in the research. Can I ask you, when you look back to that time now, I think a lot of the time we look at incredibly successful people and we say they were kind of always destined for that. When you were working in a restaurant, a busboy, climbing that ladder, did you always know that you'd be successful?
The definition of successful or success is situation dependent or personal. It's very personal. For me, I just wanted to be with a girl I love. That was success. If I can survive and continue on that path, that's great. I never really thought about making money or anything else.
How has the definition of success changed for you?
Oh, it's the same. Every day you live your life happily. That's a success. I don't need a lot.
And so then how does the first job in finance come to be? Because you have this incredible career at Bear Stearns. 15 years, you were chairman and president of Bear Stearns International. How did the job at Bear happen, and how did you get into finance?
My wife had a good job. I had a restaurant job. And then after I graduated as a chemical engineer, I couldn't find a job. So therefore, I didn't find a job because I quit my restaurant job. And I interviewed for a job 58 times and was turning down every single time. And I knew the reason why now, but at that time it was devastating.
What was the reason?
If you actually thought you're better than the person who's interviewing you, it shows.
That's a challenging starting point.
Right. When you have a chip on your shoulder, that's not a good thing.
Do you not think a chip on your shoulder is a good thing? In our business in venture, we say, chips on shoulders, put chips in pockets. And a lot of VCs say they want the founder with the chip on the shoulder, the vengeance to build something.
Depending on what job you want. As a venture capitalist, yes. Or as an entrepreneur, perhaps. But if you're applying for an engineer's job, you want a job for at the time. I was lucky enough to have a mentor who taught me everything. And who I can actually go back to saying, how should I look at this? What should I do? And I was mentored, not only one, but a couple of them told me what to do and shared life experiences and the collaboration, the try and error. And if I made a mistake, and I was forgiven and continued to be on that journey to do better. So taught me how to make constant improvement every single time. When you look back, your last minute, last day, last hour. So these are lifelong lessons. And I was taught about how you are going to figure out some ways to know that every day is a good day. And when you are looking at your daily life, you complain about how boring and mundane it is. But that's how life is. Not every day is a home run day. Not every day is exciting. Most of the days are kind of boring. But if we believe in competitive world, every day, everybody's day is similar. My mentor was a champion is a world champion in bridge. And this is, he's the smartest guy in the world in my dictionary, right? So all of the bridge hands are played by all the competitive teams, except that sequentially probably is different. You play this deck first and the other guy follow that. But all the hands are played fairly and squarely. That's just like life. You might be born as somebody who's great in the very beginning, from a family with resources, and then you're going to go through your challenges. Don't worry, those challenges will come for you. If you had early challenges, and your home run days, your great days will come after. So, all these things, they're just sequentially different. But as long as you treat every day as your last day, every day as the day that you wanted to do better, and you'll win.
How do you think about the balance between skill versus luck?
Hard to answer that question, because in a different stage of life, it's different. The answers ought to be different. In a way, luck is always the most important thing. I'm a fatalist. And I believe in fate, I believe in luck. But if you wanted to do better than your own luck and your own fate, you have to work hard. You have to appear to be full of confidence, and actually do have full of confidence, but not to go too far to get into arrogant mode of yourself. So all these things are dynamic. There's no one answer to that.
How did SHEIN come to be? That, it's, when we look at the last few years for you, it's been incredible, but it's also a different role. I mean, we had a couple of years also in media world. It's a different role. How did that come to be?
In almost everything I have done in the capitalistic world in America, there's a clear distinction between doing good and doing well. And I kind of believe that you have to do well enough, and then you started to do good. Do not mix the two too early and too mixed up. And if you look at the SHEIN's business model, yes, we try to do well. But the definition of doing well, you must do good first. Let me explain to you what I mean by that. In our business, everybody says that the customers are the most important thing. But what do you really do with that philosophy? It's very different. Retail business is such a business that is connected with the customers the most, but yet very few of us actually listen to what customers want. And we have observed that there is a significant wholesale change of a customer philosophy or customer psychology. The kids, not a kid, well, you're not a kid, but the people in your generation or younger, they really have a lot more self-confidence. They really wanted to wear their expression on their sleeves. Whatever the form it is, whatever belief it is, they are not afraid of expressing it. And they're very good at that. So the fashion business today is becoming very diversified. The fashion statement itself is becoming very diversified. It's no longer just listen to a few designers say, okay, this is what you should wear. They wanted to have their own say in it.
Can I ask, is that different from historical fashion? When you look at, the roots of Chanel or the roots of Hermes, and people would buy them because it was an expression of themselves. It was maybe what they felt they were or what they wanted to be.
Sure.
Is it not actually the same?
I think it is the same, but I think it's more individualized. In my generation, I listened to my parents a lot more.
I think my mother wishes I did.
I think it's a little different today. And then in the future generation, it will be more different. As a result of it, you have to have more styles in display in the world. And if you manage to listen, that's part of doing good. Because you listen, you adjust, you respond instead of you dictate. And then once you actually listen and make the things they want you to make, then you have less unsold inventory as a result of it. And then you have a lot better efficiency of taking out all the middle layers and unnecessary waste and all that. And then you all of a sudden have a lot more savings, cost savings. As a result of it, you can translate that to lower prices to your consumers. Now, you listen to the consumers, you give back to the consumers, you contribute to less waste to the planet, you also contribute to less pricing for that particular customer. So therefore, we do a lot more business in the rural areas, villages in UK than London, for example, and Paris and the like in America. So the people who are living in the countryside do not have the time to travel to the city because they don't have the stores in certain areas. And it takes money to come to the city, it takes time. And also they have less resources to dress themselves up prettier and trendier. So these are all the things about doing good. As a result of doing good, we can continue to grow and be profitable. That's doing well. So if you really look at all these things, how you sequentially executing all these things, all of a sudden you find yourself doing good first and doing well later. So that was a difference in SHEIN.
Can we start at the beginning of that funnel, which is actually identifying user trends, identifying what they love, listening to customers? One of the biggest kind of pillars of the success that you've had is kind of this element of real-time retail, spotting trends that consumers love, and then being able to move fast on it. How does real-time retail work specifically for you? How do you spot trends so efficiently, and what does that look like?
As you search, as you discover and reflect yourself, that you leave a trail of color mutations and style preferences. And most of the styles are no more, no less than all the mutations of such in different times. If you can reimagine the supply chain not as a mass industrialized production factories, if you imagine the factories are all networked, small and medium sized, and if you can actually receive signals from the customers real time, connecting with the factory's software platforms. If you do that, if you're connecting those things, and when you have 100, 200 pieces of garments with hundreds of millions of active customers worldwide, and then you test it, and then you started to see demand signals surge, and then you started to network the factories to produce similar things. And then once you see the weakening signal, you shut them down. So that's how you control your inventories to such a degree of significantly less unsold inventory.
So you will literally test with as few as 100 to 200 of a new style?
It's not test. We actually make them and we sell them. If you sell them well, you pump it up. If you don't sell them well, you shut them down.
And that differs drastically from traditional, which was much larger non-networked bases, which basically produced thousands and thousands to then sell.
I would say, traditional apparel model would be mass producing the styles a few designers want you to wear. And we literally micro producing the styles that you want us to make. So that is the difference. It's very significantly different.
How do you think about that relationship with the supplier? Who gets what, how they work together with you to work so closely in that very fast-moving environment?
We like to think ourselves as a empowerment company. We have partners. We don't have transactions. Everybody's a partner. Fulfillment, chain of operations, distributors, distribution platforms, the supplier factories, and most of them have been with us for forever, for a long time, because we grow together. It's not a big factory. Big factories won't take 100 pieces order. It's not enough. Smaller factories, they can grow with us.
When it comes to actually the supply chain management software, one of the, I think, big elements of your business is that all of your suppliers also need to be on this supply chain management software. Why is that a necessity, and what does that allow you to do?
Then you can allocate orders. Otherwise, if you don't know the capacity and also where they are on the last order, you cannot network. You cannot reorient your orders, right? Order allocation, if you think about Uber Command Center, it's basically connecting all the pieces, the demand supply, and then our job is to match the demand supply to make sure there's no wastage. Our DNA is about to eliminating wastage and improving efficiency to the hill.
How quickly do you know when something's a hit? Is it immediate? So you have these 100 or 200 and you do sell them. Is it very obvious when you have big winners on your hands?
It's automated. The signals, the data would hit, the signal you will receive the signal, you'll do accordingly.
Do the suppliers have any other partners?
We have exclusive suppliers. We also have non-exclusive suppliers. But all of them, if you want to onboard with us, you have to be on our supply chain software platform. So we are able to actually conduct our on-demand business model as a result of it. Otherwise, we couldn't do it.
I'm a venture capitalist for my sins. The reason I ask that is because I'm thinking about margin compression. And what I mean by that is, are you then able to say to the suppliers, we are your sole provider, we would like it at this price, and you have much more ability to squeeze on price because of that relationship?
Well, that's much deeper to really get into and really talk about it in detail. So we can talk about it later. The whole thing is not about, for us, the partnership is not about squeezing. For us, partnership is about how to grow together, how to make money together. So we are an empowerment company. We have no debt. We have no assets. And what we own is really partnership. What we really wanted to do is to make sure that that customer is really happy. However the size she is or he is, however the color preferences or style that he or she would like, whichever country that he or she lives, whatever it is, that we just wanted to be the empowerment agent for the freedom of choice.
How else have you innovated on the supply chain? Because that is a very different approach, but that is also just one stage of a very kind of multifaceted funnel. How else have you innovated on the supply chain from factory to consumer?
I think the model itself is the core. Everything else, we try to refine it, tune it every single day.
What's the biggest thing that's broken for the model? A lesson that you've had from something that didn't work? Oh, we actually didn't anticipate this. Oh, this thing didn't go as planned.
As far as the customers are concerned, sometimes that, we kind of follow the, you call it follow the money. We follow the customer. We had younger generation, Gen Z, as our main customers. They grew up and then they get married. Now we have kids. They have houses, and now we have pets. And we have home goods, arts and crafts, and we have many. So we follow the trajectory of our customers. And sometimes we become, the business itself is the customer always get to choose. They can, they have all the choices in the world. All these online companies, all the physical retail, they choose us. There's a reason they do. And they also wanted to continue to come back to do more with us. But we can't possibly make everything we sell, right? So these apparel things, we do make everything, not everything, most of the things we sell. But if it's a refrigerator, if it's a whole bunch of other things in electronics, so we're kind of getting into that.
Do you mind if the summary is made that people choose you because of price? You are very, very affordable for a wide range of people, which is fantastic. Is that okay with you when you hear that? The primary reason that people choose you and your apparel is because of price? price king?
There are many reasons people like to buy things from a retailer. It could be somebody selling dreams. And that's a good thing. I like to live in my dreams, so I buy things from a dream factory. Some people are selling for very low prices. And sometimes I see the prices at low enough and I like to try without really thinking it through. We like to think our brand is selling for choices. So if it is the choice you're making, and we actually match that choice, then you'll love it. So the ultimate is bespoke. But bespoke is for very, very, very well-to-do people. It's not for everybody. So we do approximate. When you approximate, you actually can get to very significant part of what people really wanted at the lowest price possible. So we're talking about here, the availability is your choice, accessibility is the online part, and then affordability is because it's on demand and you listen to customer, it's a virtuous cycle coming back to give you the affordability. So they're connected, all these three A's.
I have to ask, I spoke to my mother before this show and she said, oh, thank Donald, I bought 3 dresses from them and they're wonderful. And I said, that's great. And she said, yeah, they were £9. I said, they were £9 each. And my question to you is, how do you make enough money on such low AOVs, average order values, when you look at the supply chain from, being made to delivery? Just where's the margin in it for you?
We're profitable. We have growth. The unsold inventory part, the way you have to deal with it, you have to market, you have to do all these kind of things is a headache. And management of the supply chain in the most efficient way is a headache.
What percent of yours is unsold inventory?
It's very low single digit.
Compared to market, what is market?
Traditional thinking, it would be like 25 to 35%.
And the way that you do that is because of your small sample sizes on the first sale that you do before you ramp it up.
It's on demand. On demand is basically, supply chain ought to be on demand. Supply chain shouldn't be on supply chain. It doesn't rhyme very well. It just doesn't make it doesn't make sense. It makes sense if everybody responds to your vision. I think that ship has sailed.
I love that in terms of I want to buy from a dream factory.
I do.
I do too, but I think it's a great statement. Can I ask, you mentioned very kindly, bucketing me in this age of young people, social media has been a big driver on the customer acquisition side. You have SHEIN hauls, and you've dominated social in a lot of ways. When you look at social media and how you've approached it, how do you think about what you've done that's worked well and how that's contributed?
I think we are a grassroots business, or you can call it grassroots movement company. And, every time you have grassroots and you would like to have some grass tops, that's what we've got. And they have intimate relationship with the group of like-minded people. So that makes them very, very engaging and powerful. And if we work through that, that's quite effective.
Some of the social posts which go very viral are hauls, which I learned in this research, which is where they buy lots and then try it on very quickly. And a lot of people say that you're in the fast fashion business. Mm-hmm. Is that fair? Or are you not fast fashion?
I would call us, I have repeatedly calling us on-demand fashion company, because I think the image of fashion conjures up the change. If you have change and you have too fast of a change, that kind of represents fickleness. And if you change your mind before you actually can wear them or wear them often, that becomes an issue. To a lot of different groups, and myself included. So if you can actually...
What if the customer wants that? Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but it's such an individual expression of someone that they go to a bachelor party and they want to dress like, I don't know, whatever they want to dress like, but it's almost one and done. And actually we are so individually expressive that we actually change so quickly that actually, what if the consumer wants fast fashion? The
Harris poll that we commissioned recently, the UK and the US, came back exactly that. our customers wear our products longer and more often than other brands. Okay, so there's something there that we should dig in because they believe that's their style. And for example, I before I came over here, I was in the office of JD Sports. His assistant was there, or his chief of staff was there, and she said she's a big fan of ours. I said, what is the most important thing? Why is that? Why do you like us? I always find the style I love on your site. They always have the same answer. It's their choice. Okay, when you're selling choice, it's powerful because at the end of the day, it's the customer who choose you. Okay, they have all the choices around the world. They choose you because you have their choice.
How do you think about the paradox of choice? I think about this a lot, which is like sometimes if you give humans too much choice, they don't know where to go. There's a great Matthew McConaughey talk where he says too many choices will make an enemy of us all.
It's only for the people who are kind of privileged. If you're talking to very resourceful people and successful people, yes, you're right. But we're not serving just these people. We're serving everybody. Our mission is to make fashion accessible to all in every corner, every country, every community. And these are the people we want to address. And we want to improve their self-confidence to have a better tomorrow because they're confident. The freedom of choice is not free. How do you lower the price of freedom of choice to make sure people feel lack of resources not a
hindrance?
A hindrance. Exactly. Thank you.
Not at all. You said there about kind of being global to everyone in every corner of the earth. Where is your biggest market today?
United States.
United States. How do we think about global expansion? And when you review the last 3 years, how do you think you've done?
We don't think ourselves as a globalized company. We think ourselves as a localized company with emphasis on the localizing. It's global local. Global local is as far as I can see, is a trend. People are looking more inward as a trend, whether we like it or not. But you still, if you want your business to thrive on a global scale, you have to become a local community business. So in England or in Great Britain, you want to be a UK company. You want to be part of the fabric. You want it to be everything as part of the community. You don't want to be some company parachuting in just making money. That's not the kind of a trend anymore.
How do you structurally set up for that? Because I agree with you, and I think that's absolutely true. But then do you have CEOs of the independent companies in each nation that you expand into? How do you structure the organization for that?
You spend appropriate amount of time, resources, efforts to think about it and doing that. No one has the formula. It's a fairly new thing that we all have to, chart our own trajectory to do the right things. And this is the right thing to do.
When you review the American expansion, it's been an amazing success. When you review the American expansion, what do you think you did really well? And what do you think, with the benefit of hindsight, you'd do differently if you had the time again?
It's the same thing. You listen to your customers. If you're David, not a Goliath, you always listen, adjust, and respond. You continue to improve your response time, and you continue to figure out ways to better service that customer so their choice of you become more resilient or more solid.
How do you improve your response time, improve your speed with the increasing size of your company and with your transitioning into Goliath? Businesses always become slower as they get bigger. How do you get faster as you get bigger?
Because you treat every single customer as the customer. If you are dictating a trend, then you sell the same thing, same way all over the world. We sell different things differently to different people in different countries. And then the trick, obviously, to automate everything.
What mistake did you make on entering the US? Something that you didn't know, didn't see, didn't do?
In today's world, I think we're morphing into something a little different, as I have learned in the last years. The stakeholders are just as important as the customers. You have to keep the communication channel open. You have to keep on learning from the stakeholders, what they're thinking about, what they think you should do. You should solicit and encourage feedback so you can constantly do better on real time. And before, some of the, let's say if the impression is correct, that we're not doing something good, and then we should correct it. If the impression is not correct, and then we're actually doing something great people misunderstood, we should share it to have the community to embrace it. So all these things ought to be done in parallel as you grow your business. So you become more stable and more accountable and more responsible.
And you didn't do that?
Well, in the very beginning of the time, that we paid more attention to the consumers. And I think paying attention to stakeholders is a very important thing to do. And we should do it earlier and more often. And we still haven't done enough.
And when you say stakeholders, that is the supply side?
No, stakeholders would be your mayors, your governors, your MPs, your representatives in your districts, and your prime ministers, so a lot of regulators. So all the people, and also to some degree, we don't really have exactly the competitor do same thing as we do by definition because our model is so unique. But people will say, okay, if these guys are taking wallet shares, therefore they're taking part of my market share. That's true. But we should share the business model. We all can do better.
My question to you is, when you look at market expansion, paid is quite a significant part of it. And you are everywhere in London for sure, and in a lot of international markets. How big a role has paid been in dominating local markets? It's
also the stage dependent, right? So when it first entered, you do differently in terms of marketing. As you become more mature, you also adjust your paid. So all these things...
Is that controlled by the local company, or is that controlled by the head company?
It's by collaboration. So you have to look at all parts of the business and data, and then you make decisions. Principles are the same, I guess, or similar in all these kind of a data-driven business.
What does great brand mean to you? With paid, you can put brand in front of people.
We believe our brand is your brand. If you buy things from us in UK versus people buying things from us in Saudi Arabia, by the way, we have a huge, very, very grateful that we have a very good following in Saudi Arabia, for example. And they think of us differently.
How do they think of you differently? I'm fascinated by that. Because,
the style that you want us to make is different than Saudis want us to make. They're just different. So if we are the empowerment of, if we are provider of your choice, so you think of your brand as, okay, you have my stuff. It's not like, oh, you have the things that everybody else is buying, so therefore I'm buying. No, that's different. It's your style. So if it's your style, it must be individualized or localized or groupized or individual groupized.
Many different things I want to move into. When you think about like where you're not, but where you want to be, we spoke about geographies and expansion there. What are the biggest growth factors for you today that you have not capitalized on yet that you're excited to?
If you just look at the TAM, the different people have different answers. The TAM is so big.
How do you define the TAM? The TAM is
maybe apparel. Of all price range.
Who is your biggest competitor, do you think?
I think ourselves, right? So if we become complacent, do not continue to improve our business model, we should try to refine and fine-tuning our business model every single day and to do better, not to be complacent.
How could you improve it from here?
Improve the speed of time, delivery time, improve localization or globalization to have, unique hubs for the continent so you can shorten the time. You can have better relationship with the consumers or closer. You can develop better relationship with the stakeholders because you're closer. You can make your products more planet friendly because you're closer. There are a lot of things you can do to be on that journey to be a better, more accountable business. So I talked about availability, accessibility, affordability. Now it is about accountability becoming a very significant, important focus, to focus on compliance, to make sure that we're not only compliant with local law. 150 countries, a lot of different type of laws we have to comply. It's an effort that we have to do that to be more transparent.
Speaking of local and compliance, I'm sorry to ask this, but I'm intrigued. How do we think about tariffs in the ability to go beneath certain price points and what that means for where you're able to pay? And so I think there was a recent thing which was because of the price points of your products, they're under a certain point, which means you don't have to pay tariffs. How much of your success is on going underneath tariffs to avoid that?
Let's take a look at why people want to reform. Everybody wanted to have a level the playing field because that helps fair competition. Fair competition is benefiting the consumer. You want consumers to make sure that continue to receive things on a timely manner, at the same time to enjoy their trendy clothes. So all these things, if you consider them all together, that comes to perhaps a thoughtful way to elevate the disclosure, a thoughtful way to actually not to slow down, but speeding up the process. And perhaps certain things ought to be paying taxes to be fair, like TSA pre. Whoever willing to share all the data, let's go fast. People don't want to share data, go wait in line. So things like that can be resolved. If we can resolve it in the right way, I think it helps the consumer, protecting the business, also protecting the not only consumer, also business and the merchants.
I find young people very confusing today. And now I sound old. But you absolutely have this individualism, this wanting to express themselves in a way that they never have before, quite. And then you also have climate change being very important to them.
Yes.
And it seems like they kind of go in contradiction. And I have this problem with young people because they all march and they all bluntly don't quite understand a lot of the consequences of what they do and buy, I think. How do you answer the question that people always ask, which is that you are bad for the climate? Because I'll get in trouble if I don't ask it.
Let me answer the we're bad for the climate first, and I get into the question you asked earlier. If we are on the pre-consumption side of the equation, for lack of unsold inventory, that must be pretty good. So that's good. And we should continue to do that on demand, not to have too many things. You have, let's say if you have 4 seasons, 100 styles and 25 for one, and then you have 5 great ones that you picked right, and then 20 didn't do well. And 5 of them you only found out that you have not made enough. And the other 20 you haven't made too much. So that's imbalance. That's not a good business. The on-demand is every single time that you actually just sold or sold enough. Very little left over.
And then your response to, and people just use it once and throw it away, is that's actually factually incorrect. We have the data to prove that.
We have the data to the survey to say that's incorrect. But that doesn't mean that people don't throw it away. There are still that 10% of people they still do. That's still bad. How do we, the question is, how do we make people, before they buy, make sure they actually will like it? Not it's somebody else telling you to buy. That's one. Number 2 is, how do you actually love what you've got, right? In life, it's all about love what you got. If you love what you got, you're not going to be unhappy. Typically people go out to buy some more or have wandering eyes or whatever. It's because you don't have what you got. Because you don't love what you got.
It's so funny you say that. Probably the biggest problem facing retail today in this world is returns. And it's actually this consumer behavior of people buying 10 things and then keeping 1. And it's
well, if it's on demand, it will be less because it's yours. If it's not on demand, you give me 10 things, let me try it. And I try 10 of them and none of them I don't like it, just return. And when that happened. So if actually this resonates with me, instead of you're saying I should buy it, now I want to buy it, then it reduces return theoretically.
Your success has been unbelievable. And when we look at natural financial mechanisms to achieve liquidity and the natural progression of the company, I spoke to some of your investors too, who we mentioned before, and they said the IPO is so important for the restart of the China tech ecosystem, and it's a big responsibility. How do you see your role and your role model status for global companies with Chinese roots?
It is a heavy burden. If you put it that way, it's a lot of responsibility. I'm not sure if we that kind of in that kind of center stage. If we are, that we shouldn't be, and we really, it's a heavy responsibility, heavy burden. But at the same time, if we do well, I think we'll have an impact.
Do you not feel that burden? I mean, you are a, whatever the price is, a huge company, and your ability to price on a global market, whether that is NASDAQ or London or wherever it is, that will dictate how a lot of people think about, a lot of maybe Chinese-rooted companies. Do you not feel that?
I feel that. I do. I think at the end of the day, the market will decide, right? So if it's an open capital markets, the market ultimately will decide whether this concept is right or not. The consumer today decided they want to be our fans. They like our approach. They voted. So now here's another test to see if the capital markets think this is a good business model, good approach.
Why is IPOing a good idea? You are profitable. You are growing insanely fast. Customers love the products. Why IPO?
We wanted to embrace public diligence, embrace scrutiny. We wanted to make sure that we are now at a certain scale. We're no longer a brand new startup. We're operating in more than 150 countries. What would be a better exercise to have to go IPO if you wanted to have public diligence and scrutiny and to seek total transparency? Once you're a public company, transparency is no longer an option. It is a responsibility. It is a requirement. And as we are doing this exercise, we are doing everything we can to make the company accountable.
5 years' time, if I said, hey, you can project out what success would be for the business, where would you be then as a business? Both public, private, verticals, growth, where would the business be?
We think about how we're going to solve problems every day. We think about how big is the TAM, how we're going to organically grow. And so far, we still have significant growth. So far, we're still profitable. And we're worrying about one step at a time and to really look at the consumer's needs as the most important need and to satisfy her and him and to do better every single time.
I hope it's okay, but I think you're an incredibly wise person, Donald, and they would be foolish of me to not take advantage of your wisdom in another way, which is you've mentioned the importance of the pick being your wife. You've been married for many, many years very happily. When you look back on the marriage, what are some of your biggest lessons on what it takes to have a very happy marriage?
That's pretty easy for me. If you're a young person, you have the L is a different L. And then later on, obviously any kind of relationship will have challenges and you have to overcome it with love, right? So you have to be powered by love. That's a different L. But truthfully, everything about a successful marriage as an outcome always have luck. Okay, so we have 8 billion species. How do you have 2 people to be the best kind of match? It is not scientific. If you're a science-based person, you say that's not really, very genuine. But it is genuine because if you actually have the best pair, that means there's some luck involved. And then you powder with love, and then in the very beginning, you're attracted by a certain type of L.
So with the very happy marriage, you also have children, and that's a very important part of your life. But you are so busy, and you have a very full-on working life. What have been your biggest lessons? And I worry and think about this as I look forward. What have been your biggest lessons on how to be a great father and crush it at work?
Probably impossible. Unless you are extremely lucky. Human being, we're not machines. We don't allocate just perfectly.
Can you take me to a time when work got out of whack and you felt like you were not being the father you wanted to be?
All the time. I haven't been as a good father to my kids, of course. But that's, your better half comes in and, fulfill the responsibility I haven't fulfilled.
Does that weigh on you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. all the time.
Do you have regret, or do you just have the forward looking?
Oh, I have regrets. I think I have regrets in thoughts, not having regrets in emotion.
What does that mean?
I don't overthink that, so you can joke about regrets, but you don't drill on it. Everybody has regrets. Some people talk about it or think about it all the time. Some people have their thoughts and move on.
I got told the other day that the heaviest things in life are not iron or gold, but unmade decisions.
That's interesting.
And I thought about that. And then I got asked, what is your unmade decision? And my unmade decision was very clear. I had the chance to move to San Francisco 10 years ago and be a US venture capitalist and a US technologist. And I chose to be in London. I don't know if that was the right choice. The unmade decision that I think about.
I would say if you keep on making decisions right or wrong, and you will have less of a burden of unmade decisions because you don't allow that pile up. So you don't have a lot of them, so it doesn't weigh on you. So the truth is, if you have unmade decision, don't think about it. It's already gone. You're not going to go back and make another decision. And it could be better, could be worse, who knows? Why even think about the things you haven't done? Why even think about the things that never happened? So just keep on making decisions going forward, moving forward.
Final one for you before we do a quick fire. I have also kind of thought a lot about relationships to money and how we think about kind of wealth accumulation. What have been your biggest lessons on your relationship to money? And what would you advise me, Donald?
You're a wise man. You don't need advice. If I had to tell you something, just don't let money get into your head. So it's meaning that money is just another tool. The focus is doing things meaningful and stay focused and stay happy and be nice to the people around you. I think that's about it. You cannot be nice to everybody in the world because now you're overthinking or you're giving yourself too much credit. But just in your core, and you keep on doing things and making decisions, like you said. Don't leave decisions unmade.
You can call yourself up the night before the birth of your first child and say, Donald, you should know this. What would you say to yourself?
When you actually look at your child for the first time, it is the most memorable moments in your life, bar none. And I can bet anything with you once you have that moment, that will be the most memorable moments. Now, the tough part is after that moment, then it becomes very challenging. It's probably the most challenging project, if you call it that way, or the most rewarding project. Okay, and then they come hand in hand.
What is the most challenging element of being a parent?
You just have to let it go. You just have to, you're not directing anything. You're not owning anything. You just want to be on demand. You wanted to do what this precious being want you to do and do whatever you can to make this thing as good as she defines as it is. Not what you define.
I love the full circle there. I'd love to move into a quick fire. So I say a short statement. You give me your immediate thoughts. Does that sound okay? It'll be good fun. We can roll with it. Number one, what is the biggest misnomer that people have about the business?
Not necessarily about us. I think in life, I'm guilty of that too, is good must be expensive. Inexpensive must be bad.
Don't ruin LVMH's business model.
I love, I love the brand. I do love the brand. But I'm saying the inexpensive, not necessarily is bad.
What do you believe that most around you disbelieve? So mine, for example, is the only way you can be truly successful is if you're obsessed. And when you say successful, I mean professionally successful in achieving your goals and ambitions. This idea that you can have the weekend off every weekend and go home at 7 and watch TV and chat to your partner. No, you have to get back on your laptop pretty much every night after dinner and work. And every weekend you work. And there is no time off. There is no phone in a drawer and I'm done. If you're running a business and building a business to be a huge outcome, $1 billion plus, obsession is the only way to do it.
I disagree. The obsession is a good thing, but you cannot just generalize it. If if you generalize everything, then that's why we have identity crisis. There are a lot of these kind of things. Obsession is good in certain parts of your life, in certain period of your life, and in certain way of you doing things. But it cannot be good for everything you do.
100%.
Yes.
But can you name a multi-billion-dollar company that's built without obsession?
So if you're saying the obsession of SHEIN is about the consumers, I agree with you. That doesn't necessarily translate into everybody has to work many hours.
No, but the founders do.
The founders do doesn't mean he doesn't enjoy it.
Oh, totally. You can enjoy it. I love what I do.
And then go for it, I say. And then you don't call it obsession. This is your fun. So when you are, it's like you're chatting, now you're saying, okay, I have to work, I have to chat with your friend, you have to chat with your friends, you have to watch TV. It makes me to think that you're actually making choices and they have equal weight. They're not equal weight. And for some people, this is like really preferred. For you, this is really preferred. So you have already made the decision. So that's not an obsession.
Who is not on your board that you would love to have on your board?
We have a dynamic situation, as you know, that we're going, doing, there's a change going to happen. So it's not something I can really talk about right now.
What have you changed your mind on in the last 12 months? So an example for me here would be that people say we have this company culture and it's X. Your company culture depends on the person. Some people respond to the carrot, which is the reward.
Right.
Come on, we can do this. Let's build together, Donald. And some people respond to the stick. If we don't do this, we're going to be in trouble and we're going to lose to this competitor. You have to be plastic with how you apply company culture to get the best out of your team. I've changed my mind on that.
When I talk to people, this is like a life experience I've learned. When I talk to people, sometimes I felt I have gone through my logic and come with my supporting data and then collapsing with skepticism to facts and then moving beyond that and the like. So I thought, case closed. It's not that simple. It's far more complicated than that. How do you overcome certain like age-old conviction and changing people's not only their mind, their hearts? For example, the world is flat. I always believe the world is spiky. And how do you convince people of that? The upward mobility is really difficult to obtain. And downward mobility is like having lunch. And that's what people do. If you have different resources when you are born and you come to the world differently, the ability to use the resources to acquire education, technology, all that, all of those tools becoming not the equalizer, actually is disequalizer.
What advice would you have to someone leaving university today, entering the workforce for the first time?
That's something I have learned from SHEIN. You just have to be on demand, right? You have to figure out some ways to think who you are and what the marketplace or the world of demand of you. And then you kind of fulfill that demand. That's the way to fast becoming useful and valuable.
What's the kindest thing anyone's ever done for you?
I think when my girlfriend married me as a dishwasher, no, I take it back. That's a very kind thing. It's not the kindest thing. But to actually listen to me and having no sense of logic at all and just believing in my own BS and keep on talking a great game and then still feeling that, want to give me a benefit of the doubt. And that's the kindest thing. That my girlfriend did, and a lot of other mentors of mine have done that.
I'm sure you've been asked many times to do podcasts, to do interviews. I'm so touched that you did this. Why did you decide to do this one?
Well, I had a great walk with you. And you're very unconventional. You become a friend.
I really appreciate that. And I love the walk and I love the wisdom. So final one, what question are you not asked or have I not asked that I should have done or people should have done?
There's nothing really came to mind, but I would say, I would ask you, how do you stay focused and then treating every minute kind of productively? How do you do that? What's your answer?
I always remember Danny Reimer, who's a very famous investor in London, says you have to remember to keep the main thing the main thing.
Yes.
And the hard thing I find with success is that there's many shiny things.
Yes.
And the more successful you become, the more shiny they are. And the importance of understanding two vectors: what drives ultimate progression towards goal, and then also does that correlate to happiness?
Donnie is very, very lucky to know what the main thing is, but most of us don't know what the main thing is. So if you want to keep the main thing, what is the main thing for you?
For me, the main thing is to build the best early stage investing firm in the world. And we use media to do that.
I see. I got it.
Maybe for you, it's to provide customers with the most incredible products. And you use an incredible supply chain and fantastic apparel to give them that.
Right. Now we actually have significant advantage of the scale. And then we can continue to scale it. Or do we, in this stage, do we want to steer it to the right choice, right? So it's about choice. It's about your choice.
Donald, listen, I've loved doing this. Shows like this are why I love what I do and get so much energy from doing it. So thank you for being such a great guest.
Thank you. All right.